Okay, so this video is going to be kind of dynamic strengthening of the upper body, shoulders, scapular area, all while trying to keep the neck open and not slouch collapse, and also connect down into your core. So you have your shoulder muscles, arm muscles, scapular muscles, core muscles, even down to your legs. So they're kind of out of frame right now, but I'm going to stand up in a minute and kind of do some standing as well. So you may want to start sitting just so you kind of can keep your, especially if you have balance issues, so that it's kind of simplifying things. But please note that it actually is easier when you're on your legs if you have decent balance, because you can use the strength of your legs, and that's kind of part of the idea of connecting to your whole body, is to make it more efficient, to be able to lift with your legs and then channel it through your core, scaps, and arms. So I'm gonna hold this band. Lots of things we can do with this actually. You want to try to familiarize yourself with some of these movements, and then also if you have any kind of precautions or any protocol, like if you're post-operative, you just want to make sure that you're not doing too much too soon and overstressing things. Or if it's too painful, you might have to make some modifications and adjustments. So the color of band, the resistance of band matters. So this is an orange. It's a pretty, generally depending on the brand that you have, lighter is usually less resistance. So this is fairly light. It's not the lightest, but it's pretty close, maybe the second lightest or so. So it's a good place to start, somewhere around there, either lightest or second lightest. And just make sure you can feel it's all through your body. So I'm gonna ground through my hips and my heels, pulling in that core, shoulders back, chest up, kind of feel like I'm plugged in and grounded here. And then I'm going to just put a little tension here, so I can adjust. So this would be like with movement, I'm doing rotation, but again, like if I hold one and I pull out, that's kind of more isolated, okay? So I can kind of just keep tension and move around. That's one way to do this. And so kind of, if you're not sure which side might be weaker, this will already kind of tell you. Just by doing this, if it's pretty equal between the two, what you're doing, you're gonna feel one side get tighter and more fatigued much sooner. So that's where you have to say, okay, well, maybe I need to reinforce that side, but you may already have a pretty good idea which side that would be. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna shift to that side. So if I feel more weakness over here, I'm gonna shift and plug in, so more weight, more connection to the ground on that side to reinforce. So reassess and see if that feels better. It does. So maybe my weight just isn't equal, or maybe I hold myself in a way that actually sets that side up for more struggle and maybe more pain as a result of that. So I want to really reinforce and use connection to my whole body to reinforce to make that stronger. Okay, and then I can hold, or I can change angle, even just like turning the wheel here. And the direction of your hand also matters. So if I'm more palm up, or even the strap itself, if it's pulling down, wrapped around in a way where it's pulling down on my pinky aspect, that's going to challenge if I go up here more biceps than if it was wrapped around here and pulling out that way. So I'm still using biceps, but it's not going to feel as intense. So the biceps is one of those muscles where it has multiple functions, and you want to be somewhat aware because they're all important. So one is the biceps. It flexes the elbow. That's what most people are familiar with. It also flexes the shoulder, and then it also supinates, which brings the palm up like you're holding a bowl of soup. That's one way to help remember that. But that combination of all three is where you're going to get the most in there. So maybe that's too much. Ideally, that's what you want to work if you're working the biceps, but maybe it's too much. So maybe you only want to work one or two of those aspects, which is easier to do unless that aspect you're working is supination, where you can just work more of the wrist part of that, right? Versus wrist plus elbow, or wrist plus elbow plus shoulder. But say I want to work shoulder and elbow and not the wrist, because maybe that's the thing that's too much. I'm going to actually have the strap go around that way, and so I can do that now. And now it's not going to feel as intense and maybe not as painful. That was the problem here. But I can still adjust, to give a little more slack. I don't have to actually slide up and down. I can just move my other arm, provided you can do that comfortably. And I can adjust, right? Adjust my grip. So now it's working into that more resisted supination, pull here. But this is something that as you get comfortable with, you can really expand on and branch off. You can even pull down and across. I'm gonna stand up so you can see that better, that way or that way, depending on what you're working. So just as you get familiar with this, try to plug it in ways that you kind of mimics where you're struggling functionally, because you can really fill in those gaps quite well, as long as you can steer clear of pain or other kinds of problems. So again, when you're standing, you can use your legs, you can shift, you can reach, you can do more kind of adjusting, like I'm trying to reach behind my back. Sometimes, these pulling down at ends, even though they're usually stronger, sometimes it's hard to get resistance there. So what you might have to do is like sling it around your shoulder or something, so I can hold there, and maybe now I can pull more that way, or if I'm trying to come, kind of more here, like that, or kind of coming down and across, wherever those are. But those are actually usually less likely to be weak or problematic. So you're generally going to be working most of your weaker muscles when you're doing something like this, like a pull apart. And again, you can move and adjust with it, and just play around with those things. Use your whole body, all that. Or if you're practicing balance, that can be one way to reinforce your strength of balance and tension through your body for posture while you're balancing, is to hold that tension, or maybe adjust and move as you twist, turn through your body, but keeping that tension there too, to keep that chest up. And that's maybe where you need to reinforce a little bit more. So there's that plus the pulling in, but you want to have a balance between the two. There's always two ends of that rope that's tensioning. So no matter which way you go, there's always that balance of keep tension, like dental floss on both ends. Don't let go of that rope. It doesn't work one way. Well, you got to be able to go back and forth. So that should be helpful in kind of a more complete strengthening progression for the upper body, which is the harder one to actually get to than the legs.